So you found the skeleton. How would you tell people that? You personally, how would you decide?
Well, interesting question. I don't know. I'd have to do some research on this.
All right, welcome everybody to Kent with Ben 48, Kent Hard 2, Kent Harder. And I was hoping I could say Merry Christmas to you guys because, as of course we all know, January 5th is the last day of Christmas. However,
the 12th day, yeah.
Yeah, however, the sun has actually set here, so it is officially no longer Christmas where I live, and I believe that is also true for Kent Hovind.
Yeah, 36 minutes ago.
Yeah, so we were trying to do a Christmas theme with the last two titles, but we slightly screwed it up. So I want to apologize to everyone who realizes that, Dapper, you're like a half hour late for Christmas. So yeah, man, I have really no good excuse. I guess we could have moved it up to like an hour before we normally start. But
has the sun set everywhere where this is being watched right now?
I guess it's still Christmas in Hawaii.
Well, for all you Hawaiians,
Merry Christmas, Hawaii. Christmas. Yeah. Merry Christmas.
For the rest of us, we have to wait.
Yeah, we get another, what is it, 300 and...
I can't count that many days.
44 days, something like that? 54 days. 400, 300, I can't do math. Whatever, I haven't even had a sip of drink yet. Anyway, I know, I'm trying to do math in my head. I'm just trying to subtract 12 from a number, and I just can't do it tonight.
I could do that math. I'm not going to try it.
You know, the weird thing is...
I'm not going to try it.
Like, I use Blender a lot, and, like, I spend a lot of time doing math in there, and, like, then I get out of Blender, and, like, my math brain just falls out of my head. It's gone. But, anyway, so, we are going to continue, hopefully, we're going to finish CSE 101 Class 4, and then move on to Class 5. We only have 15 minutes and 35 seconds left in Class 4, and you know a lot of that's going to be like, oh, hey, review time, or like let's preach for some reason. So
preaching. When other people do credits, Kent preaches.
Exactly.
And, you know, it's just his style.
Also, for some reason, YouTube has changed the category on my stream to people and blogs. I don't know what that means, but thanks, YouTube. Yeah, German Furman says 353. Yeah, that's right. That is correct.
It sounds right, but yeah.
So, also German Furman is one of the guys who does a lot of, or has done, I think at least 2 pieces of fan art that I've used in videos. So I want to give a special thanks because, you know, I love featuring fan art, and it also makes my job easier because I don't have to animate the fan art. So it's a win-win whenever I get fan art. It's amazing. So please, anyone who wants to do fan art, send it to me on Twitter. And you know what? Here's the real hint. Although German Furmans are excellent, yours doesn't have to be. I just like that you made it.
If I did that.
Oh, all right. So before we get going into Kent, and we're going to get going in there pretty soon because we're already at like 4 minutes and we haven't started. We're going to go over the rules because we got rules, unlike the streets where they ain't got no rules. All right. So this is the rules to the Kent with Bent drinking game, and remember, Kent with Bent, and Dapper Dino in particular, as well as Kent Hovind here, do not recommend that you participate, and we take no responsibility or liability for any damages to you, property, or friends or family that may result if you choose to participate.
I recommend water.
Yeah, water works. Actually, we recommend that you participate with water, provided that you're not already overhydrated. Anyway, so we take a drink whenever Kent gets something right that he didn't just quote from someone else. So if he actually gets a matter of fact correct, we take a drink. That is our least frequent, usually, reason to drink.
But it's at least once per episode.
Yeah, it usually does happen. I mean, he doesn't get everything wrong. Let's see. We take a drink whenever Kent says something that's just too stupid. Let's see. We also take a drink whenever Kent Hovind tells a joke that falls flat, which usually means he's the only one laughing. Also, we miss that one sometimes because it's so bad we didn't notice it was a joke.
It's been happening a lot in this series, too.
Well, I think part of it is that a lot of these people have probably seen... Oh! There's an early Godzilla.
Well, early.
So, Godzilla is another one of our drink triggers, as is Mothra, who might show up. Additionally, anyone who can, if you super chat that includes a Toho, well, a kaiju emoji, and we have 2. We have Godzilla and Mothra. you guys will be able to trigger a drink as well by super chatting one of those. And also, welcome to the membership team, Command Cyborg. That's awesome. I love seeing those new little green top-hatted tetrapods in chat, which also now gives you access to all of the member emojis. So thank you very much, man. I really appreciate it. Especially since I'm moving this month. So, you know,
Yay!
any help is appreciated. But anyway, we've already had a demonstration of Godzilla, so we don't need anything else. It's time to just go ahead and dive into this.
Mm-hmm.
You got to be really careful about going down that road, because that's certainly, the average Mason doesn't know what he's in until he gets up to the top and finds out he's been in a satanic organization all of his life.
No, the average Mason knows what he's in, because what he's in is mostly a place for guys to go around and drink and perform silly rituals that none of them really take super seriously. Like, you can just go talk to Masons. In fact, it's not actually that hard to join a Masonic lodge. You can just go and figure out what's going on. Maybe at some point, there was a whole lot of, like, deeply held belief in, you know, Masonic temples and whatnot, but it's basically just a social club.
They won't know that, and it's hard to tell them that because they get mad at you, but read the book by Schoenbeam, or I will get into that in video number 5. All right, Shem lived long enough to know Abraham, Isaac, and possibly Jacob, depending on where you put Terah's age at Abraham's birth. Interesting verse in the Bible. Jacob, whose name was changed to Israel, Jacob got married and then got married again, and his 4 wives had a contest as who could have the most kids. You know the story when you read through Genesis. He ended up with 13.
You know, a competition to see who can have the most kids. I wonder if the wives consented to this contest. Because I'm just going to kind of guess no. Yeah. Oh, and hi, Command Cyborg. Oh, man. I haven't seen one of those little green tetrapod guys in a while with the cute top hat. I love that one.
Mm-hmm.
I almost regret making it like the first one because it's the one that lasts the least amount of time. So, whatever.
Yeah.
Oh well.
13 kids. 1 girl, 12 boys. They became known as the 12 tribes of Israel. Those boys got mad at their brother. And
I just want to point out that, historically speaking, it's almost certainly the case that the 12 tribes of Israel are not descended from 12 literal sons of Abraham. We actually have good reason to think that at least 2 or 3 of the tribes were actually other ethnicities that were incorporated into the Jewish people later on in history. So,
sold him into slavery. Which brother was that? Joseph, right. Sold him to be a slave. Joseph was down to Egypt, ends up getting in trouble. You know, he's trying to be nice, but they end up throwing him in jail for Potiphar's wife who tries to seduce him. And an interesting story there. He just does what's right, ends up in jail for 17 years. He rises to the top and becomes the jailer's assistant, even though he's got to stay in jail. He's, jailer gives him run of the jail. And he interprets the dreams and all this kind of stuff. Bottom line is, eventually, Joseph becomes vice pharaoh, or whatever they call him, okay?
you know what? It doesn't even matter. It's just not. It's not vice pharaoh, but whatever. I get it.
And so he becomes the assistant to Pharaoh. And Joseph sends his brothers back to get Dad. Remember the story there? They all come down in the wagons and they move into the land of Goshen in Egypt. They get stuck there for 400 and some years, as made slaves out of later, when there got to be about 2 million of them, and Moses leads them out 400 years later. But
also a thing that almost certainly didn't happen. Large-scale Egyptian building projects, which is what apparently the Israelites, or the Hebrews, or whatever you want to call them at this point, were being used for in Egypt, according to the Bible, weren't actually primarily conducted by slaves. What actually was the case is that most Egyptian building projects were actually done by skilled and well-paid laborers. The reason for this is that the Egyptians had a big concern that their monumental architecture lasts for a really long time. And in fact, it has. Some of it has lasted longer than Kent Hovind thinks the Earth has been around. So they were good at this. And the thing is, you don't use people who resent you to do that kind of thing, right? That's just how you do it. And so we actually have really good records. We have just inscriptions describing the construction of temples and tombs and whatnot. We have we have receipts for things. We have we paid this many whatever unit of gold for this many blocks of stone from farther up the Nile, and we paid this much for grain to feed the laborers, and this much for... We have all that stuff. We know. We have the cities where... Well, I call them cities, but they were sort of like company towns, basically, where the Egyptians were workers were living, we know they weren't slaves. And also, we know there's no archaeological evidence for a mass migration of 2 million people across what would have to be the Arabian desert. We just don't.
Jacob is being introduced to Pharaoh. Here's Joseph introducing his dad. And Pharaoh said unto Jacob in Genesis 47, very interesting passage. Pharaoh said unto Jacob, how old art thou? Jacob said unto Pharaoh, the days of the years of my pilgrimage are 130 years. Few and evil have the days of the years of my life been. Now, let's stop right there. Remember, Jacob is the one that tricked his own brother out of his birthright? He tricked his brother a couple times, didn't he? Later on, Jacob got tricked. They said, oh, here's Joseph's coat, he's dead. The trickster got tricked. I think there's a verse in the Bible about something like that. Whatsoever you sow, that shall you also reap, right? And boy, Jacob sure did. And he said, I've lived 130 years and they've been few and evil. And a person that lives a wicked lifestyle, his life it's hard. The Bible says the way of the transgressor is hard.
Yeah, like sometimes when you transgress that tax code and you end up in jail for almost 10 years. Oof. It is.
People that don't live for God have a hard life. Their conscience bothers them, all looking over their shoulder, see if somebody's going to catch up with them for something. Man, it's great living for God. You don't have to worry about what other people think. You don't have to worry about getting caught because you're trying to do what's right. But then he said, the days of the years of my life have been, and he said, and have not attained unto the days of the years of the life of my fathers.
You know, we get it. There were large ages reported. I'm just skipping ahead because I don't care. I'm going to skip ahead 30 seconds, see what happens.
As a person gets older,
oh, here we go.
The bones in the forehead get thicker.
Take a drink, because that's just wrong.
How old is Kent then?
So, Kent has this thing. He tries to tie it to Neanderthals. And I think that's where he's going to go. Because that's actually one of the drink triggers we usually don't mention. If we get a successful prediction that isn't super obvious, we take a drink.
They get thick-headed.
Oh, haha.
Some people do it when they're young, but it really happens when a person passes 100.
Oh wait, that was a joke that
strange things begin to happen to their physiology. For instance, as a person grows older, if they're still producing a certain hormone from the pituitary gland, I believe it is, their ears start to get longer. Mm-hmm. You ever seen old people that got real long ears?
He got that right.
Or the nose gets wider.
Right. Oh,
the disease is called acromegaly, excess secretion of hormones in old age. But there's a great book called Buried Alive, which deals with the so-called cavemen. We'll get into more of that later. But he goes through how that some of the skeletons they're finding with the bigger eyebrow ridges are just people who are living past 100.
Oh, we had a question about sheephead point. One sheephead point is... it's a very little amount. However, every sheephead point helps a lot. And basically what it is right now I'm at the point where usually my projects render first, second, or third, which is about where I would like to stay. And to get in that area, I need to stay somewhere in at least the high 20 million or so points, which is, I'm currently at, I think I'm about
27,800,000 plus. I have it running all the time.
Okay, there you go. Actually, I have it
virtually all the time, if my internet can support it. So it's one of those kinds of things. It's just, it takes a lot of computing power and you need it. It's like a community, you know, so...
Yeah.
The more people that do it, even if it's just a little bit, it's very helpful.
We also have two super chats. One from Opie for $1.99 US, who says, like button. Yes, I am seeing more than half of you haven't liked the video. And we also have $5 from Mr. Wilford, who says, then either Kent's wrong or I'm an unconscious Christian because I don't look over my shoulder in perpetual guilt.
Interesting.
That's all. They're not. Neanderthals weren't primitive. They're same size as us, brain bigger than ours.
Into Neanderthals.
Just got bigger eyebrow ridges. And so they interpret this as evidence for evolution, when actually it's probably evidence they were living longer.
Yeah, Kent, did they get an occipital... Do you get an occipital bun when you get older? Does the shape of your rib cage change from being barrel-shaped to being sort of a triangle shape, Kent?
Can we track all the people who are over 100 and see?
Yeah, like... none of them could possibly be mistaken for Neanderthals. It's actually
Does
the
Kent
case.
think that their gene code changes when they hit 100 too? Like
Yeah,
it
that's
changes when-
another interesting thing, because we've run, and thanks for bringing that up. We've actually done genome sequences on Neanderthals. They have a distinct genome.
Huh.
Although,
Interesting.
Kent did say in a previous episode that your genome changes when you become a Christian. So,
Does that mean the rungs on the ladder change?
Yes.
Sorry, that's.
Don't be sorry. That's great.
I try not to be mean with my jokes, but
It's Kent, man.
I know. There's no such thing as, what does it say? No such thing as a joke that isn't offensive. It must be offensive in order to be a joke, something like that. I don't remember.
That was sort of like Michael Scott. I think he said that's what makes it a joke.
Something like that. I can't believe I can't remember a Michael Scott quote.
Uh-oh. You're going to have to get Peacock.
I know what I'm doing after the Kent with Bent's over.
Making a D&D character?
Yes, that's what I'm actually going to be doing. But
Well, if you've got a whole generation of people that are living to be 400 years old, I mean, this went on for several generations, didn't it? Maybe what they're finding are the skeletons of these folks that are post-flood. They probably buried them somewhere, don't you think? Where are they?
Yes, if there had been a flood, people after that would have buried them. But that is not evidence that Neanderthals are post-flood humans.
well, Monk Mayford says, I have Neanderthal DNA in me, and I know I do too, but isn't it true that every human does?
No. It's very common, especially in Europeans, Middle Easterners, and some Central Asians. East Asians, American natives, and they have a tendency to have a fair bit of Denisovan DNA, and some of them have a little bit of Neanderthal. Some few North Africans have Neanderthal DNA, but it's very few, and most Sub-Saharan Africans have none.
Okay.
So, if you have European ancestry, you almost certainly have Neanderthal ancestry.
That's me, but I have basically everything you mentioned. I've got almost all of them.
Yeah.
Including Sub-Saharan African, I've got a couple percentage points of that. So.
And hey, Turboy. Welcome to the stream. It's always fun.
Well, I don't know, but it's just a thought that maybe some of the some of the Neanderthals are actually post-flood. Textbooks say the Earth is billions of years old.
Yeah.
The Bible teaches pretty clearly. Jesus said the creation of Adam was the beginning. Now, there's an obvious...
Yeah, that's the thing is it's of... And, yeah.
What?
Yeah. So, like, it's sort of like, if I say, in the beginning when the Declaration of Independence was written and sent to King George, talking about the beginning of the United States of America as a geopolitical state that you can identify as an actual existing state, it doesn't mean it was the beginning of the universe. Like, you can have context for the phrase in the beginning or when it was beginning. Something like that.
When I see a movie and I'm not sure if I've seen it before and I'm paying attention to what happens at the beginning, that doesn't mean I'm paying attention to, the Big Bang or God creating the heavens of the earth. I'm paying attention to that particular thing.
Or if you come in and say, hey, can we go back to the beginning? It's not reasonable to say, no, I can't turn
Sure,
time back.
let me get my Bible. In the beginning, God...
Exactly.
That's not what you meant? What? Oh, okay. Like...
conflict between what the two teach. So we have to come to the question, either Jesus knew what he was talking about, or he was lying. Or
you're interpreting him wrong. Or
what?
What's his third or?
I don't even know what his third or is.
he was just ignorant. He just didn't understand science.
Mr. Wilford for $2 says textbooks say it. I declare it with two, flexing the muscle emojis.
There's no such thing as an appropriate joke. That's what makes it a joke.
Okay, you remembered it. Nice.
And very frequently, if you watch the debates I get in at universities, they will try very subtly to say, they'll say things like, well, the average person just doesn't understand how complex evolution is.
I mean, yeah, that's just true for any scientific theory. I mean, why? Look, Bent, would you say that you have a great working knowledge of, say, like, I don't know, general relativity?
Anything? No, not really.
Yeah, see? I mean, you have a
my fretboard on my guitar, but even then, not really.
You have a pretty good understanding of some cellular biology stuff, but that's because you've studied it.
Yeah, I'm okay understanding of it.
And I get up and I say, folks, what he's trying to say is, you're too dumb to understand, and he's smart.
No, what he's saying is most people haven't and won't study this particular theory because there's no reason for them to. You don't have to give the worst possible interpretation to other people's statements, Kent. You could just be charitable.
Well, as unlikely as that one is, too, it's like, how unreasonable is he being right now? It's kind of mind-boggling.
Yeah.
But hey, at least he's got that look of smudginess on his face. And that's exactly what they do. Eric, you run into this all the time. Do you point that out to him? What you're saying, sir, is you're smart and we're all too dumb, right? Boy, they don't like it put that simply, but that's exactly what they're implying.
No. What they don't like is you have putting words in their mouths, because that's not what they said, if they even said it.
And watch for that. You'll see it over and over and over when you get in discussions on creation and evolution. They try in all sorts of subtle ways to say, well, you know, science is pretty complex, and the average layman doesn't understand it. Yeah, okay, here we go again. You're smart, we're dumb.
I mean, that's true.
Yeah, it is. Like,
I just got done saying I have a 4-year degree in cytotechnology and that I don't feel super confident about my biology understanding. I just said that because there's so much more that can be learned. It's complex, and
see, the problem is Kent Hovind has a serious case of Dunning-Kruger. He knows a little bit about it, and he thinks that he knows pretty much all there is to know. But because remember, this is the guy who likes to talk about how he's a lecturer on dinosaurs and the Bible. He doesn't know what a dinosaur is, as far as I know, to this day.
He never even considered the question until you asked him.
Yeah, according to
That's
him.
more interesting than the fact that he didn't know. Interesting question. Or, interesting question.
Yep.
That's more interesting to me than I don't know. He's never even thought about that before.
Yep.
How can a doc call himself Dr. Dino, at least since I was a teenager and remember him calling himself that? Not ever have even thought about that. Ever.
Sorry to shatter your boyhood illusions about Kent Hovind.
Exactly what they're trying to imply. So, Jesus claimed to be God. I like Josh McDowell's thing on this. He says, well, since Jesus claimed to be God, we got 3 choices. He's either the Lord, or he's a lunatic, or he's a liar.
I'm going to take a drink for misattribution, which, I don't know, just stupid enough. Okay, that wasn't Josh Dowell. He got that from C.S. Lewis, Kent. I mean, come on.
I believe that is Mere Christianity.
Yep, that was from Mere Christianity. Which wasn't as good as the Screw Tape letters, if I'm being honest.
I just never could get into them. I never could.
Screw Tape letters?
Yeah, and I've tried starting that like 4 times.
Try like an audiobook.
Try a 5th time, maybe.
Audiobook, though.
Or an audiobook.
Yeah.
Audiobook.
There you go.
Yeah.
I actually got an audiobook that had some pretty good voice actors doing the different demons, because it's an epistolary format. You're getting letters back and forth between a demon and his little apprentice demon.
So which one does Kent play? I'm just kidding. I'm sorry, Kent, if you ever watch this. I shouldn't say that about you.
Because if somebody claims to be God, he either is or he isn't.
Okay.
If he isn't, he's either crazy or he's lying. If I claimed to be Napoleon reincarnated, you would know either I am or I'm not, right?
Of course, there's also the option that Jesus didn't actually claim to be God. I mean, it's an option. I'm not here to tell you how reliable the Gospels are. I actually don't have a strong opinion on the matter. But unreliable Gospels is an option.
Now, if I'm not, then I'm loony. Heard about the guy who went to the mental institution, and this guy is standing there with his arm in his coat, his hand in his coat, and somebody said, "Who are you?" He said, "I'm Napoleon." He said, "Oh yeah? Who told you you're Napoleon?" He said, "God did." The guy down the hall yelled out, "I did not."
That joke actually landed.
Jesus.
I trusted that.
Yeah,
that's not the worst joke.
That was okay. That was a pretty decent sort of like, not quite a dad joke, but it's in that sort of like dad adjacent area. Okay, good job, Ken.
Said the creation of Adam was the beginning, folks. Now we got a problem here. Was he lying, or did he not understand? There are some Christians going around trying to teach the earth.
That's the problem. Someone doesn't understand.
I like how he imports a completely different dichotomy. Either So we assume Jesus actually did claim to be God. Those are really, I'll agree, those are the only reasonable options we have open to them. And then he just shoves it into this false dichotomy.
Earth is billions of years old, and we can fit it in fine with the Bible. Well, they're calling Jesus either dumb or a liar. Matthew 19:4 is an important verse, folks. You just can't get around it. He said that was the beginning. Textbooks say the earth is billions of years old. Isn't it all through the textbooks? Billions of years ago, millions of years ago, 4.6 billion years ago this happened. Do you think this stuff is taught in our county? Right here? You realize there's over 150 churches in Escambia County, Florida? I've heard that the next county, Santa Rosa, is listed in Guinness Book of World Records as having the most churches per capita in the world. I don't know that that's true, but I believe it is. Certainly a lot of churches over there, right? This is the Bible Belt, right? Why, in the middle of the Bible Belt with all these Christians, do we have textbooks teaching something that calling Jesus a liar?
Oh, first, they're not calling Jesus a liar, so I'm going to take a quick drink for that. Because I've literally never picked up a book, or a textbook, I'll say that would say that. I guess it's possible I picked up some books that said that Jesus was a liar. I don't know, I picked up a lot of books, so. But, the other thing is, it says that because usually state boards of education set the requirements for textbooks, and they usually have requirements that the textbooks be accurate. That's why, Kent. Accurate and usually up to date is another requirement.
Interesting.
Now, of course, how up to date it has to be is a little bit, up for interpretation, right? Does it have to be up to date with the last, 6 months? Well, that's impossible. I find that generally speaking, textbooks that are currently being used tend to be about 10-ish years out of date in terms of the actual current science. Which, in some sciences, is a big deal. Like, that's a pretty big deal in terms of particle physics, or actually certain parts of paleontology. But in other parts, it's not that big a deal. Like, astronomy, per se, hasn't done a huge amount of shifting around in the last 10 years. So.
When I first moved to town, I went down and talked to Katie Knight, who was at that time in charge of the science curriculum in Escambia County. I wrote letters, I tried to be nice, I went and visited her twice. I said, Katie, why are we teaching this evolution in the textbooks? Look what you have in this book. This says blah, blah, blah. This has been proven wrong 100 years ago. Get that out of the books.
Can every single one of your whatever number lies in the textbooks is just wrong? So I'm hoping that you're gonna say that she just dismissed your objections out of hand.
She said, Mr. Hovind, you are the only person in the county complaining about evolution in the textbooks. I thought, where is everybody? Isn't our job to be the salt of the earth?
Everyone's crazy but me.
That is basically what that just was.
I don't...
Look,
Yeah.
It's possible that everyone is crazy but you. But it's not super likely. So,
right? I mean, try to take a step back, Kent, and analyze.
Mm-hmm.
Salt preserve.
Yeah.
What salt does when it finds a bacteria, it sucks all the water out of it and kills it.
I mean, that's a large amount of ascription of agency to the salt, but it's not entirely untrue. It's like, I just picture...
That dang salt is going out there murdering bacteria.
I just picture, like, little cubes of salt grains that are microscopic hunting down bacteria with, like, a spear to take all the water out.
I just saw, just yesterday, I think, an electron microscope image of salt grains. I had seen it before, but now I'm just picturing that with, like, tiny little arms coming out.
Grabbing the bacteria. There's bacteria.
At a bacteria.
Oh wait, no! It's gonna suck the water out like a vampire sucking blood out.
Like a straw. You have straws coming out. I don't know.
Goodness.
That's not. I mean, yeah, but
it's broadly accurate, but it's actually I kind of. So I've now gotten a fair amount of amusement out of this idea. So you know what? I'm gonna go ahead and say, you know what, Kent, that's fine. Let's just go with it. Absurd amounts of agency for salt. Great.
That's our job. Salt irritates. If nobody's irritated at you, you're probably not a very good Christian. Now, you don't have to try to irritate people. You just try to be salty. That will irritate them. I just try to be salty, that's all. My job is to preserve. And if that means we got kids going to go to school tomorrow morning and be poisoned, I should try to stop that. Right?
Reminds me of the time that school lunch juice boxes had started to ferment.
Nice.
That was a thing that happened.
I just take it kind of personal.
That happened to me.
And if you think I leave my gorgeous wife because I like being gone from home, you're mistaken. I think part of my job is to be the salt of the earth, and
Yeah, you left your gorgeous wife so you could go to jail. Then she left you, Kent. Ooh.
Whoops.
textbooks are destroying this next generation of kids' minds, and it starts with propaganda like this saying billions of years ago. Once you believe the billions of years ago part, the rest kind of comes, well, maybe it happened. Ask an evolutionist. How do you think a dog could come from something that is non-dog?
And they would say they don't think that because
Well,
it can't.
I mean, dogs ultimately do have ancestors that wouldn't be considered in Canidae, right? If we go back before, say, the Canidae emerged.
Yeah, but not today's dogs.
Oh, yeah, no current dog ever did that. So, but ultimately...
That's how I interpreted what he said.
Well, yeah, so he always has a tendency of saying a dog as if he imagines that a single organism that isn't a dog is going to give birth to a single dog, and that's going to be the first dog, which is not how it works. But the way it does, in fact, happen is the same way that you get English speakers from people who used to speak, Proto-West Germanic, from people who used to speak Proto-Germanic, from people who used to speak Proto-West Indo-European, from people who used to speak Proto-Indo-European. Because as organisms continue to evolve, they split into divergent groups, which themselves split and split and split, and we give names to each of these splits whenever we can identify them. And at some point, that split happened, and we gave it the name dog. It's the exact same way that pugs, a breed of dog, can come from dogs that weren't pugs. By the way, quick little PSA, please do not buy or breed brachycephalic dogs. It's kind of cruel that they exist at all, and while I'm not advocating that any of them be killed, I think they should all be adopted, I do think we should stop breeding them at all. So, that's just my anti-cruelty to dogs thing. I don't think animals should be bred to suffer to amuse humans.
They'll say, given enough time, that's always the way their sentence starts. Well, given enough time, stop right there, that's all I need to hear. We got a whole section in the notebook about that, about the age of the earth, back on page 10, 11, 12.
Also, Monk Mayfair pointed out that maybe Dapper has chat on top instead of live, and I, in fact, did. Thank you for pointing that out to me. Yeah. And RJM Truth says, pugs are so cute, though. It's true that pugs are adorable. However, okay, so here's a quick story about pugs. Pugs and some other brachycephalic dogs, which means short-faced dogs, like the American bulldog. They will fight to keep intubation tubes in. Normally when an animal wakes up after surgery and the intubation tube hasn't been removed, that's the tube that goes down into the lungs, they fight violently to eject it from their esophagus. Pugs and other brachycephalic dogs will fight you to keep it in because they can breathe more easily with it in than they ever could with it out. Yeah. When an animal prefers basically being hooked up to an iron lung, then, yeah, that's an animal who's never actually going to be able to breathe comfortably in its entire life. You shouldn't allow that as a state for an animal. Like, I know that they're cute, but, yeah, they don't have a good quality of life. They literally can't. So, please, do not encourage the further breeding of brachycephalic dogs.
Whatever it is. The solution is always time. Page 9 in this edition. They'll say, well, give it enough time. Folks, there's not enough time. The earth is not billions of years old. There are some Christians going around teaching the earth is billions of years old. I have, right here in front of me.
Wait, you mean you can be a Christian and believe the earth is billions of years old?
What? That's
also,
crazy.
Kent is correct that there are Christians who believe the earth is billions of years old, so I guess we'll take a drink for it.
I happen to be one of them.
Also, there was a question about Chihuahuas breeding, shaking because of inbreeding. I'm not sure it's directly because of inbreeding. I know there is a genetic tendency towards it. The reason I don't tend to get so upset about the sort of, it's basically shivering, And it doesn't really seem to cause Chihuahuas any particular distress to shiver every once in a while. And shivering is something that mammals especially just kind of do anyway. And having a higher propensity doesn't seem like a terrible thing. So I don't have the same kinds of opinions about Chihuahuas that I do, say, pugs, which is that they are unfortunate, kind of horrifying creations of human hubris and selfishness.
A couple of the books by Dr. Hugh Ross. Creation and Time. This one is 2 books put together. Creation and Time, and Creator and the Cosmos, and Creation and Time. This book incorporated in here.
I should put those on my wish list. I don't have those.
I debated Hugh Ross on the radio as an hour-long program, but with commercials we only got 30 minutes of
I've seen
talk
that
time
debate.
in.
Kent gets
And we're supposed to have
slaughtered.
another debate on the John Ankerberg show. I went and visited and toured Hugh Ross's ministry a few weeks ago when I was in California. Hugh Ross is one of the most vocal spokesmen for the old earth creationists, they're called. Those who say, yes, God made the world, however, he used the Big Bang, and the earth is billions of years old. Now, Hugh Ross is a very nice guy. Everybody that's written to me or called me says, oh, he's such a nice man. I used to go to church with him. Oh, and he's such a wonderful man. Now, I don't know. I've only talked to him on the phone. I've never met him. He was in a meeting when I was out there touring his ministry a couple weeks ago, but he may be the nicest guy in the world. Does that have anything to do with what he believes?
I mean, in that beliefs can cause behaviors, then probably. I don't think it has anything to do with his belief on the age of the Earth in particular, but yeah, the way that you behave is at least partially an outcome of the things you believe. I mean, how could it not be, right? Like if I want to get to the store, and the reason I do things like push down on the gas pedal to make my car go is because I believe that that's how the car goes. Turns out I'm right and it works, but like if I believed that using the brake was the way to get the car to go, I would press on the brake. So yes, your beliefs do in fact inform the way you behave. Now, your instincts do too, like when you jump up in your seat because of the loud noise in the other room, it's not because of anything you believe, that's just an instinctive behavior. But your conscious actions are largely informed by your beliefs.
Aren't some of the Mormons really nice people?
Yes.
Yeah. Aren't some Jehovah's Witnesses really nice people?
To each other.
Sure, no question. Does that have anything to do with them being right or wrong?
No, but it does have to do with what they believe, Kent, because it's a different question. I'm taking a drink, my goodness. Kent, stop equivocating. It's like the only way he knows how to argue is by being fallacious. Because the thing is, his ultimate point that Hugh Ross can be wrong and nice is correct. Like, that is a correct point. You can make that. But instead, he has to make it in the stupidest way possible, where he can't even get this true argument out in a way that makes sense.
Right.
It's not that hard to not be fallacious when you're right, Kent. You're right in this case. Please do better. Oh.
No. And you got to be careful you don't fall into that trap of thinking, because they're such a nice guy, such a humble person, therefore they must be right. Hold it. That's got nothing to do with right or wrong.
Okay.
I bet some of the prophets of Baal were nice guys. They probably took their kids for rides on the camel.
You know what? I'm going to take a drink. Probably priests of Baal were indeed taking their kids for rides on camels.
There's no reason for me to think they wouldn't have.
Yep. Because you know what? Here's the little secret about...
They didn't have YouTube back then, so what else are the kids going to do?
But here's one of the secrets about humans. Even humans with whom you vehemently disagree, they're still humans. They still do things like, care about their kids and worry about what's for dinner and how they're going to, do whatever their cultural equivalent of pay the bills is going to be. Whether it's like, get enough firewood to make it through the winter, or gather enough berries to dry out to, see you through the dry season or whatever, right? Also, for $5 from Vandalia in 1998, we have Dapper. I haven't seen your stream live since last year. That's true. Were camels in that area at that time at Dapper Dino? So actually, I'll be honest, that I am not positive about. I believe so. I know we have camels attested in areas further east, like what's now Saudi Arabia, before that time. And I know that their domestication predates the advent of Semitic languages essentially getting writing systems, with the possible exception of Akkadian. I'm not positive about Akkadian, so it seems, I don't know that there were a lot of camels in the area in particular, but camels were definitely domesticated by that time, and even if they weren't common animals, there almost certainly would have been some. I mean, there's no barrier to camels reaching the area, so I would have trouble imagining that there just were no camels. I can't say for certain, though, because I honestly don't have an in-depth knowledge of, like ancient Canaanite / Judean agricultural and domesticated animals. So, overall, probably. I would be shocked if there weren't, but I can't promise.
Probably fixed their wife breakfast in the morning when she didn't feel good.
Maybe.
But they're pagan, right?
Oh no!
And if you want to get into what Hugh Ross really believes, it's very difficult reading his book. I was in the debate with him on the radio, and I said, Dr. Ross, do you believe it was a...
Apparently, domesticated camels came to Israel in 930 BC, according to National Geographic, says Monk Mayfair. So then I would say that, yes, there were indeed camels at the time. Sorry, Bent, what was that?
Why would it be difficult to read his book? I don't understand why Kent said that.
I feel like he's going to tell us, like, maybe Hugh Ross has, like, a weird writing style or something. Because I'll be honest, I don't... Other than, like, posts on Reasons to Believe, I don't think I've really read much by Hugh Ross.
He just picked up a book, as he said that, and the book looks like it's pretty thin. I don't know if that's supposed to be Hugh Ross's book, so I guess we'll see.
Global flood in the days of Noah. He said, I believe the Bible, and I believe it was a universal flood.
Okay.
I said, what do you mean by that, Dr. Ross? He said, well, it flooded Noah's little universe. It's a matter of playing on words. This book, which we sell at...
What's that? Sorry.
Wouldn't that be a regional flood then?
Yeah. Well, it's sort of like every once in a while in the New Testament, there's this word. What is it? So if you're going to use the sort of reconstruction pronunciation that is common in Christian circles, it would be oikumene, which meant the world, right? The whole of the area where people lived. Except when the Bible uses it, it's not talking about things like Australia or North or South America, because no one knew about those. In fact, most people in the area where the Bible was being written didn't really know that sub-Saharan Africa was a place that people lived. Their world basically went from, the western coast of, North Africa and Iberia up to parts of Scandinavia, north, then east, all the way to, the Persian Empire, and then south, again, down to, the southernmost extent of the Nile to, the first or second cataracts. That's it. That was the world. That's why the ecumenical councils, so-called, invited people from, Europe, North Africa, the Persian Empire, and the Near East. Because that was the whole world. There were actually Christians in China during some of the ecumenical councils, but they didn't get invited, because no one knew that they were actually even there. In fact, there were also Christians in India, starting from, at the latest, the 4th century. But you know what? People in the Byzantine and Roman empires didn't know about them, because that wasn't part of their world. They still called them worldwide councils. So, yeah. I know, crazy, right?
Our ministry, Creation and Time, goes through everything he really believes and exposes it. Now, he may be a really nice guy. He's certainly a very smart man. I've seen him on several TV programs, and he's been on Trinity Broadcasting a bunch of times, and he's their, poster boy for theistic evolution, sort of,
No, I'm taking a drink. Hugh Ross is explicitly and very clearly not a theistic evolution. Biologos is currently the biggest or most popular theistic evolutionist Christian group out there. And they oppose the views of Reasons to Believe on evolution, because Reasons to Believe is an explicitly anti-evolution group. One of the reasons why, if a Christian comes to me and says, hey, what are some good Christian sources that I could find that aren't in conflict with, say, mainstream science, I don't point them to Reasons to Believe, I point them to biologos. In fact, that's one of the reasons that Vice Rhino uses biologos as a source for a lot of the things he does, because you can't claim that they're biased against Christianity.
He doesn't claim to believe in theistic evolution, but he learned all of his science first, being an astronomer in Toronto, I believe, or Canada someplace, in astronomy training, and then he began to read the Bible and try to blend the two together. But in his mind, what the scientists are teaching today can't be changed. We have to make the Bible fit this.
No, I'm taking another drink. My goodness. Hugh Ross is not going to say that what the science is can't be changed. What he's going to say is you need evidence to change it. You can't just arbitrarily change it because of your interpretation of the Bible. The evidence is what it is. You don't get to move it around just because it hurts your pet interpretation of your favorite book.
He believes it was a local flood in the days of Noah. This book exposes all that. But when you get people who claim to be Christians that are going around saying the earth is billions of years old, there's going to be a division. The Southern Baptist Church today is split down between the liberals and the conservatives over basically one question. Is the Bible the Word of God?
Drink. Oh my goodness. Kent, people with a different interpretation from you don't not take the Bible seriously. Go ahead. Go ahead.
That is not at all loving your enemies even, or your neighbor. Like, that's not what that is. It's their interpretation versus yours.
Well, it's sort of like, I don't know if you noticed, but a lot of Ken Ham's recent stuff has been targeted not at atheists or scientists. It's been targeted at other Christians who don't believe the same things that he does. Because I think he's realized, I think Kent is realizing at this point, that there's essentially no real chance of reaching people who don't already start from the presumption that the Bible should be interpreted the way he does. And then
alienating a whole bunch of people doesn't make them want to join your crazy religion.
No. Yeah, so it's... well... Robert Adsit says, liberal Southern Baptist Church. Well, there's... In the broad scope of Christianity, I would not say that there are very many what normal people would call liberal Southern Baptists. However, if you take sort of the median Southern Baptist as your new standard, there are people who are to the left of that standard and people who are to the right of that standard. So, relatively speaking...
And the reason they're fighting over that question is primarily over one other question. How old is the earth?
Maybe.
If the earth is only 6,000 years old, like this book clearly teaches, well, then evolution can't be true. Not enough time. Even if there is billions of years, it still doesn't. We don't see dogs produce non-dogs. But the first obstacle the evolutionist has to overcome.
Dogs. I'm taking a drink for dogs will produce non-dogs.
No one sees that, Kent. That's why you don't see that.
Yeah, it will never happen because no matter how different dogs, like look. So there's do you know about the sea wolves?
No.
Okay.
I mean, no.
So there's this population of wolves. I believe it's in like southern Alaska, but they get something like 80% of their calories from seafood, and they spend something like 60 or 70% of their waking days at least knee deep in seawater. Well, if they continue to only breed with each other and continue to spend a lot of time in the water, if wolves eventually started to get some of the same adaptations that seals currently have, like they start getting webbed feet and they start being able to hold their breath longer, start being able to better able to close off their nostrils to avoid water getting into their lungs, they get better underwater vision, things like this, right? They'll still be canids. They'll still actually even be wolves. Even if, in 3 million years, they have a fluke, only 2 legs that are flippers, and they've got a weird blowhole thing, right? They won't be dolphins. They won't be cetaceans, they won't be seals, they'll still be canids. Because that's how the law of monophyly works. They'll become otters. Well, no, that's the thing, they won't become otters.
They won't.
That is the thing. They might look like otters, they might even act like otters. Just like ichthyosaurs looked, and probably in some ways acted like dolphins. They certainly gave birth like dolphins, but they weren't dolphins.
He has to have billions of years. And when you get Christians going around teaching the earth is billions of years old, this is the beginning of the problem. We'll get into later in seminar part 4 about how in the 1800s some Christians started teaching the Earth is billions of years old when they developed the geologic column.
Yes, some Christians decided not to be idiots and accept the evidence presented. Good on them.
The scientists stood up against Darwin. It was the pastors that supported Darwin.
No, I'm taking a drink. There were scientists and pastors on both sides of that.
In 1859, when his book came out. We'll get into more of that later. Next week, we'll talk more about different scientific ways to show the Earth cannot possibly be billions of years old. It just can't be. And I think this is crucial, because if you nail...
All right, well, what that means is we have essentially finished up this this video. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to take a quick intermission. During the intermission, I'm going to refresh my drink and set up the next seminar, because we already have it downloaded and ready to go, because, you know what? This is a professional show here.
We plan ahead.
Yeah, we knew what was coming. So I'm going to get us onto the intermission, and I'm even going to make sure that the intro doesn't play when we come back, because despite this being a professional show, we sometimes forget to do that. So we'll see you on the other side of the intermission.
Oh, Nani? Dare? Oh, Gojira desu ka? Hai, Gojira-san. Hai.
All right, welcome back. And I'm so glad.
It was a great question.
Well, yes. Why aren't we just watching Godzilla is a great question.
Exactly.
From TD Land. And also, I do really like that you guys like that clip, because you know, I speak essentially no Japanese, and I practice a fair bit to make my Japanese at least passable.
Sounded good to me, but I am not at all an expert on that.
Look, I've had some people who are fairly into Japanese language and media and stuff say that it was pretty good job for, you know, someone who knows not a thing. Well, I can't say that I know not a thing about Japanese. That's not true. But who knows very little about Japanese and has never bothered to study Japanese phonology or phonotactics or anything like that. So,
Seymour has an interesting question.
Oh, why is Gojira in grayscale? Shouldn't it be at least a little greenish? Actually, no. Godzilla has always been sort of a slate gray in his Toho appearances. That model actually does have some color, but it's mostly on the back. It's got some red on the back, but you can't really see it very well. But yeah, Godzilla has actually always, except for the Hanna-Barbera cartoons and some comic books, yeah, Godzilla's pretty much always slate gray. The green Godzilla is a bit of a myth. It actually started...
I didn't know that, and Dapper taught me that a few months ago.
Yeah.
So that's why I wanted him to explain it.
There were some of the Millennium era Godzilla suits had a slight greenish tint. It was very, very subtle. Also, the origin of the gray Godzilla actually started with the movie poster for the American release of the 1954 Gojira, which was titled Godzilla King of the Monsters in the United States in 1955. And in a poster, they had a green Godzilla. And so in the United States, Godzilla has always been associated with green because that's how American audiences imagined him. There have been some rumors that the original Shodai Goji suit that was used for the filming of the 1954 Gojira was green, but there are conflicting reports that it's gray. But in the first color movie in the franchise, Godzilla vs. Kong, or Kong vs. Godzilla, whatever, I don't remember, Godzilla was gray. And he has remained gray, or very, very nearly completely gray, for the rest of his appearances in at least all of the live-action Godzilla movies. So, as well as the recent anime trilogy, which, while I wasn't a huge fan of, I do think it is underrated. I don't think it's as bad as most people think it is. But hey, that's just me. And there you go. There's some Godzilla trivia, because you know what? When you come for Kent with Bent, you don't just get Kent with Bent. Sometimes you get Godzilla, sometimes you get language trivia, you know.
Well, welcome to class number 5 of our
Thanks, Kent.
10-part series on creation and evolution. At the rate we're going, it's going to take a long time to cover all the material.
That's okay, Kent. That just means that there's years to come worth of Kent with Bent if we want it.
It's going to take us even more time.
Yup. Because these videos are like an hour. These videos are like an hour and a half, and they take us like months to complete.
Oh man!
About the age of the Earth. And that's what we're going to talk about for the next few sessions. Actually, how old is the Earth? It is a key component in, I think.
And I'm sorry that he's quiet, but this is about as loud as I can get him. This video just wasn't as loud.
The testimony of Jesus in Matthew 19:4 was that the creation of Adam was the beginning.
Yeah, we've already covered, but I'm going to drink anyway.
Now, you'll find many scoffers today will say, well, the ancient people talked about the Earth being 6,000 years old because they didn't know any better. What are they trying to imply by stuff like that? We're smart, they're dumb. Right?
No, okay. So this is one of the things, and this is not unique to Kent. It actually pops up a lot in a lot of atheist circles. People who did not have modern scientific knowledge, and therefore thought things that were untrue, didn't think it because they were dumb. They thought it because they were ignorant, and they couldn't have been otherwise. If you got plopped down in 1000 BC, you could only know things up to the point that people in 1000 BC had learned, right? It's sort of like, let's say you want to do some research. You're at the cutting edge of physics research, right? And you're gonna be the one who figures out quantum gravity. Oh yeah. One of the things that has puzzled scientists on the cutting edge of physics for decades now. You're going to be the one. You're going to get it. Well, you couldn't do it if you couldn't stand on the shoulders of people like Newton and Bohr and Einstein. Right? Like, these are the people who developed, who learned the earlier knowledge that you get to take for granted. Right? And it's not you, even if you are the one who discovers the actual way that quantum gravity works, it's not because you were smarter than Einstein who couldn't do it. It's because you were able to stand on the shoulder. Oh, there's Mothra. It's because you were able to rely on all this previous knowledge. And this comes about in a couple of ways. The first big thing is writing, right? Writing lets knowledge last. Oh, there's Mothra again. Writing lets knowledge last for centuries, right? We still have the actual words that were written down. Oh my goodness. Malthus trying to kill me here. We still have the actual words of Plato and the words of the pharaohs. Why? Because they wrote them down and people either copied them or they wrote them down in media that could survive, right? We know the names of ancient Sumerian kings from 7,000 years ago, right? Like, that's crazy. But the other thing is the scientific method, where we actually test hypotheses to see when they're wrong, and when they're wrong, we discard them, and we only keep the ones that aren't failing tests. So, those two things put together allow us to build knowledge. But the fact that people in the past didn't have the knowledge that we have now is unavoidable. How could they not? People in the future will know things that we don't. That doesn't make us dumb, and it doesn't make the people in the past dumb. And I hate it when people imply it. So please stop pretending that the ancients were dumb. They weren't. They just didn't have as much accumulation of knowledge as you do.
Hey, had a question-answer session at the church I was at a couple nights ago. Where was I? Wisconsin.
Kent, he was in Wisconsin. Mr. Wilford for $2.
That's why I moved out. No, it was the snow, really.
That's why I moved away from Massachusetts. Honestly, that was the biggest reason. I hate it. I think I've told the story on this stream before, or this channel before, but there was it 2016? Maybe it might have been 2017. I don't know. Whatever. It was a few years ago. But we'd just been slammed by snowstorm after snowstorm after snowstorm. And I was driving to work for a security company, and it was snowing hard, and I was struggling to get there. And at one point, I just screamed at the sky, like, please stop, just stop. And I realized, I can't keep doing this. I gotta change. Something else has to happen. So I looked up, like, where does it never snow? And I found out that the last time it snowed in Phoenix was in the 70s. And it snowed, and there was about a 1/4 inch left on the ground, and it didn't last an hour.
Yeah.
And I was like, that is an acceptable amount of snowfall for the previous 50 or so years.
It might be too much, but only barely too much.
Yeah. Wait a minute. Mr. Wilford says, for $2, keep an ear out for delivery. BB, you guilted me. Well, thank you. If you got me delivery, that is very much appreciated, Mr. Wilford. But please don't come to me in the morning saying that you don't remember doing this because you're drunk right now. Because you've already done that once, and I kind of felt bad.
It's Kent's fault.
All right, here we go.
And God's service.
And this one, we had people lined up at the microphone to ask questions. And this one scoffer was there. His professor was sitting out in the crowd, sending the student up to ask questions. And I would be sweet and kind, but I'd just, blow the student out of the water, as my answers. And he'd go back, and the professor would put his arm around him and go, you should have said this. Well, Professor, why don't you get up here, you coward? You got something to say? Come ask me a question. But see, that way he can maintain his composure by sending the students out to be sacrificed and not have to do it himself. But the students kept making statements like, well, the average person in this room probably doesn't understand what the complexities of science.
I mean, yeah, fair enough. It's annoying if you keep harping on it, but I don't think they were harping on it. I think you're harping on it now, Kent.
I said, hold it. Folks, let me translate that for you. What he's saying is, he's smart, you're dumb.
Teeny Lane says, stories Kent made. I'll take stories Kent made up for $200, Dapper Dino. Yeah, also, man, rip Alex Trebek. Oh, and drink from Mothra. Like, actually, most of the time, celebrity passings don't really bug me much, but, like, that one was rough, because Alex Trebek always seemed like a stand-up dude, and that guy worked until the very end. That guy was taping episodes of Jeopardy while in extreme pain from late-stage terminal cancer days before he died. Like, come on, dude. That is crazy. So...
I'm sorry, muted. Yeah, he kept putting on a brave face and saying he was... going through treatment and expecting to make a full recovery, but as someone who knows enough about metastatic pancreatic cancer, when it's stage 4, like, I don't know all the details, but it's never a good thing ever,
Yeah,
obviously, and it's a matter of time.
Yeah.
So I'm not really surprised he lasted. From his diagnosis to death, I don't remember the time frame, but
Smitty says they shouldn't have let him work. From what I understand, based on people's reports, he insisted that he keep filming.
Yeah.
It was his choice. Like, I mean, what do you do? Like,
it's like, what does he have at that point?
Yeah,
like,
I mean, because let's be honest,
that's his life.
That's his life. That's his legacy.
Yeah, don't take that from him.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Smitty says, well, maybe it's the only thing that got him through it. I don't know. Yeah, I think that's what it was.
Yeah.
I really do. I think that was his source of comfort in his final months. Was this is me. This is what I do. So.
Mm-hmm.
He said, that's not what I meant. I said, how many of you took it like that? Nearly every hand went up. Exactly what they mean. And when Jesus said the creation of Adam was the beginning, a common response you will get, people will say, well, the ancient people were just trying to explain the world to a bunch of ignorant shepherds. They phrase it slightly differently, but it all boils down to the same thing. We're smart, everybody else is dumb.
I just realized something. If Mr. Wilford is honest, I need to turn on my exterior light. Because otherwise I'm being a jerk. So, Bent.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell people things for like a few seconds?
All right. I will tell you guys one of my favorite jokes, and it's a terrible joke, but I do like jokes. And I don't know if it's online. I heard it on deployment, so I couldn't see if the guy made it up or not. But all it is a simple, what's better than jail? Bail! Yeah, it's funny. I'm laughing inside right now. And let's not forget that jokes on deployment are way better than jokes not on deployment. Because I'll just say this, reading the dictionary for fun on deployment is a thing that happens. If you're lucky enough to be stationed in the plant that has a dictionary in it. Because that's what we did. So, yeah.
Are we talking about guessing the word?
I'm just doing the joke that one guy said. I don't want to name names, but you'll have to watch the VOD to hear the joke, I guess.
All right. But it's true,
as you can see by the laughter in the chat, it's hilarious.
It is actually true, though, that reading the dictionary was an actual pastime. Oh, my goodness. T. Lane, careful with that. Google will put the ban hammer on your entire account if you spam emojis. So that was a thing for a Markiplier stream. He said, hey, vote, like, he had these two, like, for channel members, right? He had, like, a red ping pong paddle and a blue ping pong paddle emoji. They would use them for voting. One day, Google came in and deleted people's accounts for spamming that emoji. And he was like, but I asked them to. Yeah.
Did those accounts get restored?
They did eventually, but it took a while. And only because Markiplier makes Google, huge amounts of money. I do not make Google that much money. So be careful. Yeah, their Google accounts were straight up disabled. Like they couldn't access their Gmail.
That's like my Gmail is pretty important to me.
Right.
If I don't have that, well, I mean,
yeah.
I'm always getting in touch with people, but
yeah. Remember when Google used to have the motto "Don't be evil"? Yeah, that's not their motto anymore, and for good reason.
Yeah.
All right, here we go.
In other words, if you don't believe like us, if you don't believe evolution, you're not smart. And that attitude reeks on some of these guys. I think you got to really watch for that. So Jesus said pretty clearly the creation of Adam was the beginning. Here the textbooks are teaching the earth is literally billions and billions of years old. And they'll say the universe is older than that. All through the books you see the phrase, millions of years ago, billions of years ago. I mean, the books are full of this in this county. I mean, in the Bible Belt. Every place I go, they claim to be the buckle on the Bible Belt. I've always wondered where it really is, We've even got some Christians going around teaching the earth is billions of years old. Hugh Ross has a large ministry called Reasons to
Hey, we're
Believe.
back to Hugh Ross.
He is one of the
I'm going to skip ahead to maybe get to something we haven't talked about yet today.
Doesn't need billions of years to prepare anything for anything else. He just, poof, creates it. So, the earth is not billions of years old. Now, who cares about this topic anyway? Let me tell you the importance of this. I think it's extremely important.
Oh, here we
The
go.
credibility of Jesus is certainly at stake.
Is it, though, or is it the credibility of the really specific version of Jesus that you happen to believe in, Kent? Because I actually don't think the credibility of Jesus hangs on this. But even if it did, it would be more like the credibility of the Gospels hangs on this, which is a different question. That's not the same question.
The credibility of the book of Genesis is certainly at stake. Genesis teaches very clearly at the end of the date that the earth is about 6,000 years old. And Jesus quoted from Genesis 25 times. Apparently, he believed in it. If you want to give
That's such a serious stance to take, Kent.
Yeah.
There's too many
It
pages
doesn't
to
make
make
sense.
copies of for tonight. But in the back of the Defender's Bible by Henry Morris is a chart showing all of the New Testament references and Old Testament references that refer back to Genesis. There are 200 New Testament references referring back to the book of Genesis. It's very neat to read all these passages in here. If you want to get this chart at page 1550 something here in the Defender's Bible. But 1556. Nearly every other book in the Bible refers back to Genesis. I think there's maybe 2 exceptions that do not refer to Genesis. So this topic, I think, of the age of the earth is, and Satan knows this, of course, this is the way to undercut the entire Bible. You destroy the credibility in Genesis, and you might as well throw the rest of the Bible away. And the scoffers certainly know this too. Now, a 4th reason, the evolutionists care about this topic, because if the earth is not billions of years old, the whole theory of evolution looks awful silly.
You know what? That's true. I'll take a drink. That's fair. It is absolutely true that the theory of evolution does require the Earth to be very old. Fortunately, it is.
Doesn't it? I mean, think about it. If I say, if you kiss this frog, it'll turn into a prince. It's obviously a fairy tale, right? But if I tell you the frog can turn into the prince slowly, somehow the human brain can accept that.
No, okay. I'm gonna take a drink for frog and a print. Okay. Look. Modern, as we call them, amphibians are members of a clade called Lysamphibia. It includes the Sicilians, not the people from Sicily. They're spelled differently, but it's pronounced similarly in modern English. But they're amphibians that kind of look like penises, and they live underground. And they're also the only Lysamphibians left with teeth. And their skulls are freaking horrifying. They look like monster skulls. It looks like something out of Tremors. But whatever. Frogs and salamanders, those are the groups of Lysamphibians. They are a sister group to Amniota, which is the group that includes reptiles and mammals and a few other things that aren't quite either. Right? And so, those 2 groups diverged. No one in the world who knows anything about the actual history of, like, tetrapods thinks that frogs turned into any kind of amniote. And Monk Mayfair says, dirt dicks. And then John Furman says, the penis worms last snakes. No, actually, penis worms are a different group. Penis worms are also called, well, they're more properly known as Priapulids, which is named after Priapus, who's a Greek god that I will leave it up to you to look up. Because I'm sure not showing that on screen. But let's just say this. He requires additional support for some things in typical Greco-Roman depictions of Priapus. But penis worms are actually unsegmented worms that are marine, and they're mostly predatory. They have this really cool reversible proboscis lined with these sharp tooth-like structures. And they actually almost certainly cause a mass extinction. So that's neat. And they're still around. They're no longer like a dominant marine predator. But yeah, they're not tetrapods at all. Sicilians are tetrapods, and they are limbless tetrapods, like snakes. Which actually, there's a few things that keep evolving in the history of Earth. One is crabs. Another one is snakes. Snakes keep evolving, and crabs keep evolving. And when I say, keep evolving, I mean different things arrive at broadly similar body plans to crabs and to snakes repeatedly throughout evolution. Relatively unrelated groups will just evolve from tetrapods to be limbless, slithering, terrestrial or semi-terrestrial organisms that hunt things. And among crustaceans, things will evolve to be squat, round-shaped things with legs out to either side and claws up front. And even if they're not related, it just keeps happening. One of those weird things. Actually, there's a term for the crab thing. It's called carcinization.
Whoa.
Yeah. Well, it's because, you know, how cancer is the word for crab.
I was going to say, it sounds like carcinoma to me, or carcinomatosis.
Yeah. Well, that's you know how there's the astrological sign of Cancer? It's a crab?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, those are related.
Yeah, I suppose.
That's precisely what evolution is teaching. The frog turned to the prince, but it happens slowly.
No, it's not, Ken. I'm still taking another
It's
drink, because why not?
a fairy tale. But see, the evolutionists will fight tooth and claw over this issue about the age of the Earth because this is the first hurdle they have to overcome. In order for evolution to be true, zillions of things have to be true also, and this is the first obstacle they face. How old is the Earth?
TD Lane says crustaceans aren't monophyletic. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, how is that an obstacle? How's the age of the Earth an obstacle?
It's an obstacle
when it is as old as it needs to be.
Well, that's the thing.
I don't get
it would be an obstacle if it weren't, but it is, so problem solved. Also, TD Lane says crustaceans aren't monophyletic. If memory serves, that's true. Crustaceans are paraphyletic. You have to include insects into crustacea to make crustacea monophyletic. So, technically, insects are just land crustaceans. Well, they're one group of land crustaceans, because we also have a lot of, you know, those wood lice, or pill bugs, or whatever you call them when you were a kid?
Mm-hmm.
Roly-polies, maybe?
Roly-polies.
Those are also crustaceans of a different kind. Those are isopods.
I was asked to go speak at this church in Iowa one time, and a lady came to the meeting, and she said, Brother Hovind, my husband's an atheist. Would you please talk to him? I said, I'll be glad to. I went over to the house the next day, sat on the couch.
Wasn't he just complaining about atheists and Christians getting married in the last episode?
He's making stuff up right now anyway.
Oh,
so.
yeah, that's a good point. Things that didn't happen.
And he sat on the chair. We talked for 2 hours. All we talked about was the age of the Earth. Didn't talk about the Bible, just talked about how old is this Earth anyway. The guy was an engineer of some type, I forget now. Very smart man. After 2 hours of what I'm about to share with you...
Uh-oh, German Furman says that scorpions are a land lobster. No, lobsters are crustaceans. Scorpions are definitely not. Nope, not going to let that one pass.
Information that proves the Earth is not billions of years old. After 2 hours, he looked at me and said, wait a minute. You know, the Earth is only a few thousand years old. You're right. But he said, that means...
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and say hashtag things that didn't happen, Kent. And you know what? I'm so tired of this. I'm taking a drink for his made-up crap. Ugh.
It had to be created, doesn't it? I said, yes, sir, and that's really what I came to talk to you about. But it took me 2 hours to get there. Of course it had to be created. But see, sometimes you have to go through lay the groundwork before you can reach them with the gospel. And I think the age of the Earth is a critical place to start. Tonight, we're going to begin with some scientific ways to show the age of the Earth. I think it's pretty obvious from Scripture the Earth is about 6,000 years old. But what about science? What does the world itself teach us about its age?
Well, I'll tell you what, whatever Ken says, we're going to try and give you the actual thing that it says. So, buckle up.
There are several ways you can approach it. I try to give people evidence from space, evidence from physical things on Earth, and evidence from living things on Earth. Kind of the 3 categories I put my evidences into. I start off with one that everybody can understand, that is the population of the Earth.
What?
This article, July 99, says, last weekend, the world's population topped 6 billion.
Okay.
Now, 6 billion is a lot of people. You'll find, if you look back in the 1999 newspapers, you'll find about 8 or 9 different dates where they claim this happened.
Yeah, because population estimates are imprecise, and everyone wants to have a cool headline.
You know, nobody knows for sure when the Earth got 6 billion people, obviously.
You know what?
You don't know for sure.
Well, you know what? I'm actually going to agree. That's true. It's true, and I'm going to take a drink for it. Because you know what, Kent? I'm feeling nice. I have generosity in my heart.
What do you mean by no one knows, like, the exact moment, or, like, the month?
Not even the day. Because he said it happened on 8 or 9 different days. I'm going to say no one knows the date. Probably not even the month.
That's fair. That's fair.
And you know what? I still have the Christmas spirit in me because Christmas was only, what, like 2.5 hours ago?
Several hours ago, yeah.
Yeah.
And Christmas lives on in my heart, so...
Right. So, yeah, I haven't run out of Christmas spirit. I mean, we just watched a Christmas movie last night, didn't we, Bent?
Yes, we did. What was the name of it again?
Once Upon a Time on Christmas. It was on Hulu. I cannot say that I recommend it, but it's a thing that exists. It also gets the days of Christmas wrong, because it starts 12 days or 11 days before Christmas Day, and it counts up to Christmas Day, but Christmas actually, the first day of Christmas is December 25th.
And I didn't know that until you taught me that. It's another thing. Stop teaching me stuff. Wait, no, keep teaching me stuff.
Okay. Either way, you let me know. Actually, it'll be hard for me to stop teaching things, because I just explain things compulsively, so... That's literally that's 80%.
Well, because I say Merry Christmas 3 or 4 years ago. I say Merry Christmas on the 20th, and you're like, it's not Christmas. I'm like, yeah, it's the 7th day of Christmas or something, and you're like, no, it's not. And I was like, oh, hey, how's it going then? Hope you have a good holiday season.
You could say have a solemn Advent.
I didn't. Yeah, I guess I could have said that.
Okay, here we go.
National Geographic said it happened in October. This one says July. It doesn't matter. The fact is, there's probably about 6 billion people on the planet.
At the time, accurate. I'll take a drink.
5 billion people on the planet. I went to the University of West Florida and got several books. I forget the name of the one, Population, Encyclopedia of Population, I think was the name of it, at the University of West Florida. But any good library will have books about population. That's what they deal with. How many people are here? How fast is the population growing? It's all statistics from different countries around the world. And everybody agrees that somewhere in 1985, the world crossed over the 5 billion mark in population. Back in 1800, there was only 1 billion people on the planet. Now think about
I really want him to get to a point, but I'll just let him go.
His point is not think about it.
Well, I just want to point out how stupid this chart is, right? I'm actually going to take a drink for this chart. Okay, I like that he has a question mark over Noah's flood, because it's fair to say that if Noah's flood had happened, no one would know what the population was. But from there, he has a steady increase, right? And then it just kind of takes a weird uptick. It's not even a geometric thing. And, I mean, it doesn't take into account the fact that, Genghis Khan himself wiped out, 1/10 of humanity. It's not actually, but it was a significant. It would have show up on the graph, right? Or
are there not plagues in that time?
Right, and there were plagues that wiped out
large portions of humanity.
And even take a look at so when Europeans start showing up in the Americas, right? They bring with them, in most cases unintentionally, plagues. And do you know why it was that when when Europeans started showing up in what would now be the United States and Canada, that they were able to so easily settle and had relatively few conflicts with natives? 90% of the North American population had been wiped out from plagues spread from South America before European contact with the North Americans had even been made. And that doesn't show up anywhere on this graph. 90% of the North American population. Think about that. You know why Squanto was so easily able to help all the North American settlers who came over as pilgrims? And why he was so eager to do so? Because after he came back from a trip to England where he learned English, which is how he was able to communicate with them, his entire village had died of plague. Think about that. Imagine that you went on a trip to Europe to hang out, and you come back, and your entire city is just gone. All your family's dead. They're just gone. And then suddenly, some English people show up. You happen to know their language. Of course you're gonna hang out with them. What else would you do?
So I'm just looking at these other charts from other more realistic sources, and they actually do kind of have a similar trend, except for the first 2,000 years, of course. That is just non-existent. But everything after that, and then there is a dip where the Black Death and the plague and all that. But as far as that crazy growth, a lot of them they're doing similar things.
His crazy uptick at the end is accurate.
Yeah.
But the thing is that's because of technology. It's not because of some. I know where he's going. There's a smooth population growth rate that he's going to go with. He's going to give some percentage, which would give you an exponential growth.
But I want to be clear in these charts that I'm seeing, and I'm picking 10,000 BC or whatever. It's flat at 4000 BC. It's flat at 3000 BC, at 2000 BC.
Yeah.
It doesn't tick up.
You know why?
So the Noah's flood spot.
It's because there's this thing called carrying capacity, right? Normally speaking, an environment can only support a certain amount of population of any given species. And that fluctuates a little bit based on environmental conditions, but overall it tends to remain relatively constant over the course of a few thousand years. The only reason humans have been able to have this crazy uptick is because advances of technology in the last few hundred years. Mm-hmm. Oh, and Mr. Wilford says for $2, delivery almost there, man. Well, thank you.
We're going to have to do a mini intermission when your door.
We will, actually, when someone knocks on the door, because I don't actually have a doorknob or a doorbell. I have a doorknob, just not a doorbell. I'm not that fancy. I should get a door knocker, like Scrooge, because we also watched that movie last night.
That was great.
Muppet Christmas Carol. Yeah. Muppet Christmas Carol is classic. I just love Gonzo as the narrator.
I couldn't quite get into him with his voice not sounding wacky.
Well,
I'm just used to him from it's been a while, but he's on Muppet Babies, right? Because that's the last Muppets I really watched. The reruns of that 10 years ago or so was the last time I probably watched it.
You should watch some reruns of the Muppet Show. There's a reason there's a reason it was the most popular TV show of all time. Think about that.
Yeah. Take that, Sesame Street.
6 times in the last 200 years. If we continue that rate for 200 more years, 600%.
Mr. Wilford says, "Sorry guys, he guilted me. Blame him for the intermission." Dude, I haven't said a thing to you about food. Not a thing.
How do you know I'm not hungry, man? No, I'm just kidding.
Right.
So, in my freshman year of college, in my very first biology course, we learned a little bit about populations, and I've already forgotten almost all of it. But yeah, basically the estimates are we can basically make 12 billion people on Earth before there's not going to be enough room, and the populations will level off. Well, there are patterns to these population growths. There's statistics that are run on them. You can make predictions, and that was very interesting to me when I learned that. My freshman level of college. Kent, this is not super duper advanced stuff here.
No, it's not. Also, Mr. Wilford said, your other intermission said, feed me, please, don't lie. T. Lane said it was a very sad intermission. But I will say that I directed you to my merch store, which is linked in the description in that intermission.
Diaper Dino again.
Diapers. Awesome. Oh,
man. That one.
Race will be a lot of people. The price of property will go way up, right?
Like it is in Japan.
When you stop and consider, only 3% of the Earth's surface is livable. 70% is underwater, for one thing. A whole bunch of it's under ice or desert.
That could be true.
You know what? A lot of it is under desert, but you know what we live in there, Bent?
I live in a desert.
I live in one of the driest deserts. I live in one of the driest deserts on the entire planet. There are 3 cities in the world that get less rainfall than where I live.
Yeah, and there's only 5 that get less sunshine than I live.
Yeah.
Or more sunshine than I live,
right,
including your city.
So
I have my tiny little niece and nephew sent me a chia pet for Christmas.
Aww.
That thing is not growing. It's too dry in this house. The water on the seeds evaporates, and they don't. I'm just bad with plants too, but it's a chia pet, man. The ones underneath, because it's a Bob Ross set, it's pretty cool. But the ones underneath that still have water, those are growing. The ones on top, that just evaporates out.
Yeah,
it's too dry. It's a desert.
Monk Mayfair says,
I live here, Kent.
Monk Mayfair says Kent is a little quiet in this one, and I agree. I wish I could fix that. Unfortunately, I have him turned up as high as he'll go in the program, on my desktop, and in OBS. This is literally max Kent volume. I might, after this, go in and produce a re-edited version of this where I just bump up the volume for next week. So, Bent, can you try to remember that? To have me do that?
Yeah.
Because that shouldn't take too long. I can let that happen overnight. But sorry about that. I did not know he was going to be this quiet. Because while this is a very professional show, we're only sort of professional.
This isn't professional for me. I don't get paid to do this.
I get paid a little bit.
I mean, Sahara
You get
Desert
paid up.
is huge, much larger than America. Fly out west, and you'll see how much property just is wasted real estate, basically. Couldn't live there. 3% of the population.
Did he just say that Arizona is wasted real estate and you couldn't live here?
Fly out west. How far west is west to him? I don't know.
I mean, I feel like Arizona's pretty far west.
It is pretty far west, but does he mean like to the west coast or 100 miles from the west coast? I don't
The
know.
west
what
coast
he
is
means.
very heavily settled.
Who knows what Kent means?
I take personal offense as a current Arizonan. Is that the word? Arizonan? Arizonian?
Let me look up Phoenix. I believe it is in the top 5 or 6 in population
Something like
in
that, yeah.
the country.
It's really high.
In the middle of a desert,
is
so
considered to be livable for humans. If before the flood came and it was destroyed, if the pre-flood world was, say, 80% livable.
What? The pre-flood world was 80% livable, so it matched
Let's just
the pre-flood world was 20% covered in ocean. I'm taking a big old drink for that. That's like a chug line.
the oceans were all really shallow, 3 feet deep,
Oh my
all
goodness.
across the whole ocean.
Yeah, Monk Mayfair says drink for Kent misrepresenting Arizona. You know what? I will drink for that. You know what, Kent? As someone who's living in Arizona and who quite likes Arizona, yeah, cheers. I almost said something much harsher.
Largest state capital by population, 5th most populous city in the United States.
Yeah, Phoenix is gigantic. And of course, Walker, I am the dapperest dino, which, by the way, reminds me. One quick thing. Boom. Here we go.
Plus, you've got much better atmospheric conditions, which we'll get into later when we get into what's on my video number 2 about the Garden of Eden. You have much more.
We're not even on video 2.
And higher oxygen concentration. You can get a more dense population with plenty of food. The earth was truly built to be inhabited, like the Bible says. I think it's in the book of Psalms. God created it to be inhabited. It could have held a population of hundreds of billions. No problem. This is a huge place. But
No.
this
Yeah, no.
a Merrill Earth Science textbook, 93 edition, shows the kids that there was about 1 billion in 1810.
Oh,
People argue about when it happened, but roughly around the turn of that century, we
Drink
crossed
from
over
Mothra.
the 1 billion mark. Now they're saying the Earth is overcrowded. Here's National Geographic, October 99, and it says on October 12th, the 6 billionth person is going to be born. Like I said, I go back to 99 to find a lot of arguments of when this happened. But somewhere in 99, we probably crossed over the 6 billion mark. Now, this issue of the population of the Earth was a great motivator for Charles Darwin. I want to pass out this sheet to you here. Everybody take.
I think you're thinking of Malthus, Kent, not Charles Darwin. Although, to be fair, Malthusianism. Oh, I have this. That's the wrong thing. They're not seeing you. They're seeing Kent because I'm an idiot. My sincerest apologies to especially Ben Hovind, but also to everyone else who was subjected just recently to double Kent, which, I mean, I cannot apologize strongly enough.
Apology accepted.
Well, thank you, because it was needed.
Mm-hmm.
All right, but I will say this. So Malthus was basically the guy who kind of came up with the idea of carrying capacity to some extent. And he was sort of an early pioneer in economics. And while Malthusianism has more or less failed in the centuries since it was proposed, or century plus since it was proposed, at least for humans, it has actually reasonably well applied to most other organisms. So Malthus had this idea that the more people there were, the more food was needed, but the less land would be available per person for cultivation. Therefore, there was only so much land that you could grow on, and there was only so much you could grow on that land. And so, as the population grew, eventually you would hit a cap where you cannot produce enough food to feed the number of people being born. And so, you would start having starvation problems. As it turns out, humans are really good at finding new ways to not starve. And so, that hasn't been happening. We haven't hit an actual cap yet. And also, since in the more wealthy a country is, the lower the birth rate is. In fact, in most first world countries right now, the birth rate is below replacement rate. so they have populations that are declining. It actually might be the case that the Earth is not going to reach its carrying capacity for humans, because humans might end up voluntarily restricting their population as people just decide not to have that many kids. However, it is the case that Malthusian ideas about population growth and carrying capacity do in fact carry over well into non-human animals. And he was one of the first people to propose ideas like carrying capacity, even though he didn't really call it that. So Kent is... What do you call that? Is that right?
I'm not going to say that.
I'm just going to take a drink anyway, because I'm thirsty. Boom.
Take one of these and pass it on down. This is a copy of some of the pages from Henry Morris's book, The Long War Against God. If you want some great supplemental reading, did we ever order this one to add to our catalog? We should, Dan. This is awesome. You can get it through our ministry.
He's doing a commercial for his ministry right now in the middle of a class. I love it. You know what, Kent is nothing if not a capitalist. I will...
Product placement.
My goodness. Oh, man.
You know what? Brought to you by water.
You know what? I respect the game, Kent. Good for you. By the way, guys, I have a Teespring store. It's linked in the description.
You do?
I do.
Huh.
You could get that wonderful blanket that you can see behind Kent Hovind right now.
Wow.
Yeah.
For less than a cup of coffee.
No. It's much more than a cup of coffee.
Less than a cup of coffee for a month.
How about this? It's less than a cup of coffee if you're buying that ridiculously expensive Civet Poop coffee.
It's less than a, I don't know, vanilla latte a day for a month, maybe? Who knows?
Yeah, that might be.
I read this years ago when I just was getting into the creation movement, and this book had a very profound influence on me. He lays out the history of evolutionary thought. Now, I feel like he kind of went backwards. He starts with the present, who's teaching evolution now? More. Okay.
Apparently they're here. Don't miss it for $2 from Mr. Wilford. So, Bent, tell people about Navy stories.
All right, so here's the deal about the Navy stories. Like, sometimes they're like, all right, you can't tell anyone any of this stuff, right? And then they'll tell you something, and then you go, because, like, we would just check Yahoo. What else are we going to do, right? Because back then, that's what we had, but you look it up and you're like, yep, that's like word for word what's on the internet. Well, you're not allowed to say it, though, because it's confidential, but, like, it's already information that's out there. Everyone knows, or could know if they just looked up, the thing I'm not supposed to talk about. So I'm not going to talk about it, but I will say this. I was a nuclear-trained electrician in the Navy, so it might be something related to that. And I don't know if Dapper's back yet.
I am
Dapper
back.
is back.
Yes.
Nice.
So, I hope it was entertaining. Sorry about that little break. Also, I want to say, Mr. Wilford, thank you so much, man. That is a frankly astonishing amount of food, so it is very much appreciated. In case you guys don't know, Mr. Wilford and I, we hang out outside of YouTube chats and things, so online, because, I'm not hanging out with anyone right now, in person, which kind of is getting old. But hey, but no, seriously, man, that is greatly appreciated. Yeah, I don't know what to say. What I have to say is, let's have more Kent.
He starts with the present and kind of goes backwards in time. So I did a couple of audio tapes on the history of evolution, 2 hours long, on the same kind of information. Who's teaching this stuff? Who influenced who anyway? Where did this idea of evolution come from?
So I will say that the history of science, the history of science is an interesting topic, and I think it's understudied, but it's not terribly relevant to science itself. And I think the reason that Kent cares about this is because he imagines science as being similar to, say, a lot of religions, where how do you know something's true? It's because the prophet or the God-man or whoever is the most important figure says it is. And Monk Mayfair says, "What'd you get?" I inquired what Miles want to know. So I know I got pizza, and I know I got some cinnamony bready things. But I didn't open any of it because I put it down on the table and rushed back to see you guys because you are my priority tonight. Chat, you guys are more important than me being fed right now. And Mr. Wilford says, large chicken, bacon pizza, 60-count boneless wings, cinnamon twists, Parmesan bread. My goodness.
Wow.
Well, there you go. Apparently that's what I got.
You knew you weren't thirsty because of all the times Kent Hovind just said dumb things.
I have plenty to drink.
Told jokes, and he got some things right, and all of the above. So, yeah.
All right. Well, here we go.
And only I started with the Garden of Eden and went the other direction with my audio tapes. So you can still get those tapes from our ministry called the History of Evolution. 2 audio tapes for $3 each if you want those.
I kind of want to see if that's still available. I kind of want to call Kent Hovind and ask.
I forgot to drink. No drink necessary.
No drink necessary. I have plenty of liquids.
He's got a lot.
And here, on audio form, you can listen to it in the car.
Dude, I have like nearly 2 full handles of rum. Don't even worry about it.
Sure.
Rum is one of the few things I buy.
Yeah.
Right. Over there. Question above the flood. Yeah. Nobody has a clue how many people were here. All you can think of is...
That's not true. People know how many people.
Well, I mean...
the charts. It's pretty good estimate.
So they're talking about the before the flood section, and to be fair, the before the flood section had a question mark, which if the flood were true, I would say that's reasonable to say, I don't know how many people there would be. So, yeah.
Well, I'm looking at these charts that show, like, human population charts. It's at 0. It's at 0. It's barely coming off the chart towards 1 billion at 6,000 BC. And at 4,000 BC, it's a tiny bit higher. 2,000 BC, it's like double, and then the year 0 is when it finally starts coming up. So, like, when they say people have no idea, I mean, look, I haven't confirmed this, but I saw all these different charts that basically show the same thing.
Yeah.
I guess I'll look at a peer-reviewed scientific paper.
One thing that's funny, we might get into this at some other point, but like, if you take the steady growth idea seriously, like a lot of creationists like, you get to ridiculous results like there were 2,000 people in the world when the pyramids were being built. It's like, well then, who built them? Because there were also people in the Indus Valley and Mesopotamia and the Chinese Yangtze River Valley.
To build them.
I know. It's like, so what, like 20 people had to get together to build the pyramids? Okay, sure.
Yeah, what does the Bible talk about? Like, does the Bible say that it was slaves that were building the pyramids? Or
well, it doesn't say that they were building the pyramids. It says that
they're building something, right?
Yeah.
But maybe it was just like 4 guys, and they're like, man, this is a lot of work.
But Kent said there were 2 million of them.
Oh, wait.
Yeah, that contradicts his entire story.
Wait, hold on.
Yeah. Do we take a drink for Kent?
I guess numbers don't make sense anymore.
Yeah.
Because you can't have 2 million and less than 2,000 at the same time.
I know.
Math is a liar sometimes.
If you have infinite food supply, no reason to limit the family.
Infinite food supply? I'm just going to take a drink because Kent just said that.
I could go for infinite food supply.
Food takes work, Kent.
People have Mr. Wilford's gifts, or
look,
it's like for you.
Look, Mr. Okay, so here's the thing, right? Here's why food takes work, right? So Mr. Wilford got me some food. Presumably, he had to do some work to get the money that he paid for the food. But in order to pay for the food, the company he paid, namely Domino's, had to pay its workers to make the food, and they had to buy the food from suppliers. The suppliers had to buy the food from farmers. Farmers had to work to make the food. At every stage in the process of people planting crops or, hatching chickens or whatever, people had to do work to make the things that make the food that I just got. Food doesn't appear magically. It does literally grow on trees, but guess what? To make enough of it, you have to tend the trees. Also, I don't think any of those things grew on trees. Maybe cinnamon. I don't know how cinnamon works. Is cinnamon a tree? Someone find out if cinnamon grows on trees.
I think it's a bark.
900 years. There's no reason to not have 100 kids per family.
I'm taking another drink. I just
And the
can't.
women are thinking, oh, brother.
Yeah, maybe they are, Kent. I like how Kent just goes on about how, like, oh, this guy had 100 kids. It's like, do you even think that a woman could survive 100 pregnancies in the ancient times? Because I don't know if you know this, Kent, but there used to be a saying that you lose a tooth for each kid that you have as a woman. The reason is because calcium was hard to come by. And your body's going to leach it from your bones and your teeth if you're pregnant and you don't have enough calcium. Like, come on.
While in a diaper.
Oh, and German Furman says cinnamon is from trees. Yes, awesome. Yeah, see, I don't know how cinnamon works.
Yeah, it's bark.
Awesome, now I know. Thank you, guys.
What did you say? Now you know why there's more than one.
Oh my god, now everyone is saying it. Okay, I get it.
I don't know about all that. I had 3.
Wait till the people who are 10 minutes behind or still binging the series.
Oh, yes.
It'll be in the comment.
It will be.
Cinnamon is a bark, by the way. And I better see like thousands of those comments.
Ben, you should look into getting a cinnamon tree. See if that's a thing you could do.
I have
drink for
almost considered that. I've almost considered doing that. I don't know if it would survive this climate. I haven't looked into it too much.
Cinnamon is the bark of acacia tree. There's other trees that are called cinnamon too. Interesting.
Oh.
There's a pretty good Alton Brown television program where he talks about cinnamon in one of his episodes.
Oh, okay.
And he goes over all that, and it's pretty cool.
And Tesla Ranger points out multiple wives, and okay, that's fair. But remember before we said that 20 seemed to be like a reasonable maximum for a woman to have as kids? And like that's...
You said that. I was thinking like, well, are you sure about that?
Because you would think lower, maybe. Like, I'm talking extreme maximum, right? So that means we're talking like at least 5 wives per person. And the thing is, even if you look at the Bible, most people in the Bible don't have that many wives. I mean, sure, we get like King David, who has like, whatever, like 20 wives and like 100 concubines, whatever.
He had like 700 concubines or something, but it was still pretty much a 1-to-1 ratio of men to women, right?
Yeah.
Like, so...
Well, until they all get killed off in wars. All the men. That's how you solve that problem. You just kill off your young men by sending them to war.
Okay.
I don't know what the population was. I just made up a number.
Actually, hey, that was King David's actual solution when he wanted to sleep with some woman. It was like, hey, put that girl's husband in the front line, and then maybe he'll die.
It worked.
It did.
It could have been. Some people honestly think there may have been lots more than we have today. Maybe 10 or 20 billion. I don't know. I don't
Seems unlikely, but whatever.
You pick a number, because any number you pick is going to be based on...
Maya points out, in fairness, he opened the stream advocating for polygamy. This would follow. Yeah, no, that's fair.
They're all assumptions, so we don't know. The world is certainly not overcrowded, though. Thomas Malthus wrote a book called The Essay on the Principle of Population.
Yeah, I talked about that earlier.
In that book, and he talks about it on this paper I passed out, and you can read this later when you go home, just add that to your repertoire of interesting reading.
I'm already home, Kent.
Malthus said the population grows geometrically.
He did say that.
Like it'll double every so many years. And the food supply grows arithmetically. It only grows by adding. You add, a certain percentage or a certain number to the food supply. Now, he's wrong, okay? Malthus was dead wrong. Because if you get more people on the planet, you now have more people available to plant the food. So it's wrong to say the food supply grows
oh my gosh.
in a linear progression and the population grows geometrically. That's simply not true.
Actually, Kent is right there. Through much of recent human history, food supply has not grown linearly, and Malthus was wrong about that. So I'm going to take a quick drink.
I'm not, because the first part of what he said is very, very wrong.
Well, to be
There's
fair, though...
so much more to go into what a population can be sustained based on having more people to plant more food.
Right, but to be fair, he was not describing his belief. He was describing, broadly accurately, Malthus's incorrect belief.
Okay, that's fair.
So I've got the spirit of Christmas.
No, I
remaining.
misunderstood what he was. I thought he was saying that himself. So.
No, he was describing Thomas Malthus.
Okay.
But Malthus said that in his book. His book was written in the late 1700s, I believe, or early 1800s. Had a very profound influence on Darwin. Because Darwin read that and thought, wow, if there's more people born than can possibly survive, then it's really best if the weaker die off and the stronger survive.
I don't think that was a thing that Malthus said, but it's been a while, so. Come on. There we go.
And you get a person with this kind of mentality. We'll look on the second page of this sheet I passed out here. On side 2 here. Herbert Spencer also wrote prolifically on this topic, saying, look, it's really best if the strongest survive and the weaker die off. I got a line underlined for you. Spencer said, if they are not sufficiently competent to live, they die, and it is best they should die.
I mean, I'd agree with the first part. If you're not competent to live, you're gonna die. I mean, what other options are there? Is it best that you die? I mean, I don't know. It's a judgment call that I'm not gonna make. I'm gonna stay out of that one. Like,
I'll say no, but that's my opinion.
Well, look, I tend to agree, but this channel is not about moral philosophy.
Sure.
He coined the phrase survival of the fittest. Now, there's an interesting movie, I'm sure all of you have seen it, where this phrase comes up.
Is it The Green Mile?
What else? Are there any other movies?
Not to Kent.
He said, are there no poorhouses?
Oh!
If they're going to die, let them die and decrease the surplus population.
It's A Christmas Carol. We just watched that. You know what? I'm going to take a drink just for funsies. Because you know what? That was a fun movie, and it's a fun story.
And Christmas was so recent.
Yeah, it was just Christmas, just a few hours ago. That's true, to Christmas. You know what? God bless us, everyone. Also, I totally forgot until last night that the Muppet Christmas Carol split up Jacob Marley into 2 characters, and one of them was Robert Marley. And I cannot tell you how much I love that Robert Marley was the name that they chose. And if you don't know why, then listen to more reggae.
Yeah.
He was talking about Tiny Tim. Scrooge, Ebenezer Scrooge,
No.
right? Charles Dickens.
Scrooge wasn't talking specifically... Oh, take a drink. Scrooge was not talking specifically about Tiny Tim. That was when he was approached for a donation, and he was talking about the poor in general. Not specifically Tiny Tim. Now, later on, that was quoted back to him by the Ghost of Christmas Present as like a hey gotcha thing. But no, Scrooge was not specifically talking about Tiny Tim, Kent. Just how... It doesn't even matter to your point, and you still get it wrong. How are you this bad at everything, Kent? Kent is just like a perfect storm of being terrible at everything. Oh, man. All right, we're going to get a little bit more Kent.
He did Kent hard, and he is Kenting harder now.
It's true. This is like the most Kent has ever been. Oh, man. We're going to get like a little bit more in, then we're going to do some wrap-up stuff, and we're going to get out of here.
Dickens' book, The Christmas Carol. When you understand, that book was written during this time frame of the late 1800s when people had this mentality. Many
because people don't still have that mentality.
of the laissez-faire capitalists said, hey, well, if they can't survive, it's their own problem. And we finally had to get lots of...
Some of the laissez-faire capitalists. This is the last thing I'm going to say here. So, okay. There's a pretty wide diversity among laissez-faire capitalists. Most laissez-faire capitalists would actually say that laissez-faire capitalism, which is not the situation in the late 1800s in England, that laissez-faire capitalism would actually end up overall making the poor better off because society would be richer and therefore unskilled labor would actually have a higher productive capacity, and therefore the actual cost of things like food and whatnot relative to a day's wage would go down. Now, I'm not here to talk about economics, so I'm not going to. But the average laissez-faire capitalist did not have in their mind the idea that, oh, we're just going to get rid of all the poor people by killing them through starvation because we're not going to have any social programs. Additionally, laissez-faire capitalists generally are in favor of private charity. And it is an actual fact that as welfare states increase in their output of, benefits, private charity decreases. I'm not going to say which one's going to be better or worse in the end, but I'm just going to say that laissez-faire capitalists were not out here to say, let's kill off all the people who are currently poor through starvation. That is just not the point they were making. Now, you can make the argument as to whether or not their policies would result in such things, but it wasn't their goal, and it still isn't their goal, because there are still laissez-faire capitalists around, right? And go read their stuff. Their goal isn't let's kill off all the poor people because they suck, because they're poor. And yeah, as Sphincter of Doom points out, social Darwinism does not equal laissez-faire capitalism, basically. Yeah, it's true. So, I mean, I'm not here to say what social system is best. I will say, however, that every time you say that, oh, this group of people in politics thinks that we should, get rid of all the poor, you're probably just wrong. Most political philosophies care about the poor and want to see them do well. They have different ideas as to what would make that happen best. Now, there are some political philosophies that, subdivide society into groups that they actually don't want to do well, and they want to harm. But it's usually not just solely based on the socioeconomic status. It's usually based on things like religious affiliation or ethnicity or things like that, which is not the same thing. So, now that we've said that, we'll do some quick wrap-up stuff. Bent, you got anything you want to plug?
No.
Not even coppermagma.com?
It's still there. People have heard about it.
But maybe not everyone in this chat right now. We might have new people.
There's a coppermagma.com with free music.
Yeah, it's pretty good music.
And if you don't go there, that's fine too. But if you do go there and you hate it, that's fine. But if you like it and you want to download the music, just click the download button.
It's free. Free original sludge metal. So
yeah,
if that's the thing you like,
yeah,
go do it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, so for me, let's see. Tuesday. Oh, so this is Tuesday. So Thursday is going to be I've got one of my compilation, like, the movie things. This is going to be Creationism is a Mega Catastrophe, the movie. Oh, drink for Godzilla. I have on Saturday nothing in particular planned. Maybe there'll be something, maybe there won't. I am currently working on what's probably just going to be a 2-part series based on a article that Raw Matt wrote about the Rhapsodies. And I'll just say this. His total article is about 1.5 pages long. My script responding to it is about 10 pages long. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
So look forward to that. Then next Tuesday is going to be Eric with Erica, and I think we will be joined by Sphincter of Doom from the chat, because he had been interested in coming on for one, and I asked Erica, and she was down for it. So there you go. And then I'm not sure what's happening after that, because I need to do things like move. So that might throw a wrench into things. I don't know. That might even mean that I miss a few upload days. I'm not sure. So, but yeah, Raw Matt is going to be the subject of my next couple videos that are scripted. And now, yeah, that's it. So, you know what? Thank you very much, everyone, for coming. I want to say a special thank you to everyone who super chatted, and that includes Command Cyborg became a new member, which is also amazing. Thank you very much, Command Cyborg. Also, super chatters include Opie, Mr. Wilford, and Vandalion 1998. So, thank you very much, everybody, and I will see you hopefully on Thursday.